Hello, and welcome to the Ancient Journey. On today's journey, did Ted Bundy help catch the Green River Killer? Before we get started, don't forget, if you enjoy the video, please give us a like and a share. And if you're into our content, please subscribe. It helps grow the channel, and it keeps us producing these videos. The movie The Silence of the Lambs is a classic. It's a story where a notorious serial killer, Hannibal Lecter, assists FBI agent Clarice Starling to apprehend another serial killer, Buffalo Bill. But this movie's plot actually happened in real life. Serial killer Ted Bundy is one of America's most notorious villains. Bundy was given the death sentence in both 1979 and in 1980 for the 36 women he admitted to killing. It's more likely he killed somewhere around 100 women during his rampage through the country in the 1970s. Bundy had a violent childhood, growing up in Washington State, spying and stealing from people and showing a fascination with knives. Having a brilliant mind and a larger-than-life personality, he earned a psychology degree from the University of Washington in 1972. Shortly after, women started turning up missing in the state of Washington. Using his knowledge of psychology, Bundy would present a harmless outward impression when luring his victims. He would dress well, and to accompany his look, he would keep his arm in a sling, looking injured, and ask for assistance from women. Those who obliged would find a violent end. Bundy possessed a huge intellect and moved to Utah to attend law school. Law school, however, proved to be too difficult for him, but he still found killing easy. Eventually, in 1975, Bundy was arrested after being caught with burglary tools, a rope, and ski masks in his car. Also in that car, which the FBI discovered upon searching it, were hairs from 3 of Bundy's victims. He escaped from police for a short time, heading to Florida and murdering more along the way. He was eventually caught driving a stolen car. He confessed to 36 murders, his last confession coming moments before he entered the execution chamber, where the electric chair was waiting for him. Bundy died in the electric chair at 7:16 a.m. on January 24, 1989. But in 1982, more murders were happening in Washington state. Investigators in King County had their hands full as the bodies of women kept turning up along the Green River. 4 years had gone by since the first Green River killer was noticed. Detective Dave Reichert had no leads and a caseload that kept growing. He now had 40 homicides linked to the Green River killer, but was not gaining any traction in his case. And then, out of the blue, an offer of help from the least likely of places. The letter had come from a cell on death row in Florida. The sender was Theodore Robert Bundy. Bundy wrote, "Don't ask me why I believe I'm an expert in this area, just accept that I am and we'll start from there." Bundy had seen Reichert's photos and news articles and reached out from his prison cell in Florida to offer his assistance. He was already on death row and had been in prison for 6 years by this time. Reichert and Robert Keppel, who was an investigator for Bundy's case, flew to Florida to meet with Bundy. There is some thought that perhaps they were looking to find out if Bundy was responsible for any of the murders, but the letter shows Bundy reached out to them, not the other way around. At the time, Bundy had already been in prison for 6 years and was waiting for his death sentence. Bundy called the Green River killer the Riverman, and told detectives that he felt the Riverman may be going back to his crime scenes and performing sex acts on the bodies. He offered that the detectives should be staking out fresh burial sites from the Riverman. Bundy's motivations for these meetings weren't entirely on the up and up. He was clearly fascinated and aroused by the details of the Riverman. It was almost as if he was reliving his past glories as a serial killer, hearing the details. Most of Riverman's victims were prostitutes or runaways. The victims were raped and strangled. The crime scenes would be littered with handfuls of chewed gum, used cigarette butts, and trash. This was all done in an effort to throw off investigators. At times, it appeared bodies had been dumped in one location and then moved to another location. Bundy had frightening first-hand experience with the same sorts of killings committed by the Riverman. His interviews with the detectives would soon prove to be invaluable. Bundy was able to offer opinions on the Riverman's methods and motivation. In 1982 and in 2001, a man named Gary Ridgway had been arrested for soliciting prostitution by the Kings County Sheriff's Office. In 1983, police thought that Ridgway could have been a suspect, but in 1984, he passed a polygraph test. However, police were able to take DNA samples from Ridgway in 1987, and in 2001, after DNA profiling had been used, Ridgway was arrested and charged with the murders of 4 women. Ridgway's DNA was found inside the bodies of the women he had raped. Just as Bundy had suggested, the Riverman's sex acts at the crime scenes helped lead to his capture. Bundy had, at the very least, given great insight to the detectives on how the mind of a serial killer works. Ridgway is known to have murdered 71 women as the Green River Killer, but he admitted the number could be closer to 90. He was convicted of 49 murders and sentenced to life in prison after agreeing to provide the locations of all of his known victims. The most famous serial killer had just helped apprehend the worst serial killer in a real-life, truth-is-stranger-than-fiction moment. Thanks for watching, and thanks for sharing the journey.